why is that the case, but I guess in general, I mean, being in business for so long, I guess naturally you just find yourself into this entrepreneurial thing. Yeah.
A very interesting dynamic that you paint there. So let's talk then about risk. Was that the answer? Is that why we were seeing a lot of African black-owned SMMEs in ESD at the CSIR, in another incubator, and others are having M&A conversations?
It's not risk per se. I think the historical narrative in the country, right, it paints a picture where if you're black, naturally you navigate your life towards employment because you are told go to school, get a job, that kind of stuff. But I think as societies evolve and what happens with other communities that don't look like us is the lack of growing up in families that are running family businesses. So even when that person goes to school, naturally, they are inclined to actually study for creating some business of some sort or contributing in the family business, whereas we tend to study to be the best employee somewhere.
Let's talk then about risk as a formula for entrepreneurial success there, and maybe some of your thoughts around that.
Risk is necessary, but I don't think by default being an entrepreneur means you're like really super risky, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about creating wonderful businesses, sustainable businesses. So you have to allow an element of risk, but I think more than anything else, it's really around being excited around serving your community more than the risk that it takes. Because I think once you flip the switch into serving your community or serving your family, I think you realize that you have to do it either way. It's not about whether it's risky or not risky. And by the way, employment is very risky. Find someone who's 60 years or 65 years, ready for retirement. Just have a conversation with them and see how they view the next 10 to 20 years of their lives. Complete panic. Which, again, it tells you the things that we normally think are very risky, in most cases, in this case, starting a business or being in business, is actually something that we should be doing as a normal day of our lives. Because, again, if you meet a business person who's 60 or 65, they're not thinking about retirement.
I want to speak then about, appetite for failure and how that ties into risk. Because I think also what does play into people's perception around risk is the perceptions around failure. Specifically with entrepreneurship, where, of course, the failure rates are higher than going to get a job. And, of course, if you do well, then you do super well. But if you don't, you don't, And I'm wondering about the conversation, the thinking around us embracing a failure as a community, how that plays into our entrepreneurial dynamics.
I find my life very exciting when I'm in a competitive space. And competition comes with failure, right? As much as you can succeed. So I know we speak a lot about fail fast and all of these many things. But I think if you look at life naturally, what it was meant to be, when you were a kid running around playing, probably 50% of what you were doing, you were failing. You didn't even recognize that you were failing because nobody said you were failing, right? You were just trying out stuff. You knew some things, you didn't know some things. I think the issue with adulting, we then put certain things to characterize what we mean by failure. And we've turned failure into this horrible thing, right? Which is why nobody wants to branch out. Even, where someone can still do their normal job and have a side hustle, again, this idea of failure, we've made it so scary that it's not even a matter of I'm failing towards success. This thing we call fail forward?
Yes, fall forward, yeah.
But just the idea of trying anything, I'm scared to fail because it's embarrassing. I'm not scared to fail because I'm trying something new. And I think if you really want to get into business or entrepreneurship, it's redefining what we mean by failure and understanding that failing is okay for as long as you keep trying stuff.
Very interesting. I think that you pointed that out. I also want to speak about, just risk tolerance for different people. For some people, what you might see as a risk, another person might not see as a risk. And because we're different people, we then tend to embrace risk very differently. Do you think that's got a direct correlation to how big you can win in life? One of the old sayings that we hear in Finance 101 is the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
And that's the most incorrect statement out there, right? Because you will even see in basic investments, right?
Mhm.
Your highest risk investments are not necessarily where you make the most cash.
100%.
And I think when you go to business, it's not any different. I mean, I spent the entire day with a startup today, and just evaluating their business model. It's filled with so much risk, but also the opportunity that lies in there. I mean, it's so amazing if we can get everything right. So I guess the trick again is, are you gonna shy away from entrepreneurship because of this incorrectly perceived risk and failure and all of those things, or are you going to say, I've been born as a human who could contribute something useful and that could be of service to someone? Am I gonna take up that call, or am I gonna be, stuck with all of these fictitious things that we create, and we turn into like real things,
Yeah.
and we start fearing these things and risk and all of this stuff.
Before I let you go, let's talk about the book. I think it's very interesting that you have gone on to pen some of your entrepreneurial musings. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this. So, what's in the book? What exactly do you try to tell your reader?
This is an amazing book, if I can say so myself. Literally, what you will find in this book is less of the hype around entrepreneurship which you find every day. This is really your accountability partner every day. If you really want to be a successful entrepreneur, or you want to check out the space, you're not sure about your career, you want to maybe innovate also within the business, not necessarily branching outside. So it's a practical guide on how you can, partake in some of that. But more importantly, it's how do you use entrepreneurship to build wealth? Because I think that's another thing that we forget around business, right? At the end of the day, we start these things to build wealth, not necessarily to, take all the risk for no reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for speaking to us this evening. I think it's been fantastic speaking to you, just hearing your thoughts on the issue of entrepreneurship. That is Sfiso Tshabalala. He's author of Discover Your Entrepreneurial Genius. There, certainly giving us a lot to think about on Small Business Tuesday. It is 7:30 at this point.